Now, this is something really interesting, which is buying gold using bank cards. Is it permissible or not? I'm going to buy some gold, I use my bank card. Can I or I can't? So, we have three types of cards that the banks usually use. We have the debit cards, and the debit cards are the cards that have debit on them, and these are always, as soon as you buy, the money will go out from your account on the spot. So that type of transaction, that type of card is acceptable and no problem. Even though that transaction might take a day or two to go to the account of the other person, but it's been guaranteed. So it's been paid. And that person who took the purchase by the card from you accepts that, no problems. Okay? As if it went into his account. So it will appear into his account, but it will not be cleared except maybe 1 or 2 business days. Why we are saying that? Because gold has a specific way of dealing with it. So, in the Hadith, Ubadah ibn Samit and Muawiyah met at a stopping place on the road. Ubadah told them, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ forbade selling gold for gold, silver for silver, wheat for wheat, barley for barley, dates for dates. One of them said salt for salt, but the other did not say it, unless it was like for like, hand to hand. And he commanded us to sell gold for silver, or silver for gold, and wheat for barley, and barley for wheat, and to hand however we wanted. And one of them said, whoever gives more or asks for more, he engaged in riba. So what does that mean? There are two things here. Gold for gold, the other which is hand to hand, like for like. Okay? So, if I have a piece of gold and I want to replace it with another piece of gold, I cannot come and say, here is gold, what can I buy? Unless the weight of that first piece that I gave equals to the weight of that piece that I am buying, which will definitely not be. Because if you want to do that, if you sell a gold piece, you sell it for less than the amount that you purchased it for. And then when you want to purchase another gold piece, it will be less weight. That's why when you are swapping gold, you cannot. And you should not. So what you should do, you should sell the piece, and he will say, oh, you have $5,000. Pick. No. Give me the $5,000. Put the money in your pocket. Now the first transaction is finished. Now you can look for something else and buy. Okay? Why? Because we said, as the Prophet ﷺ said, gold for gold is not permissible. If you want, you can swap with the same weight, like for like. Hand to hand. So this is the other criteria. Hand to hand, it needs to be paid on the spot. Hand gives the money, hands take the gold. Done. You cannot buy using credit. Okay? So, that's why debit cards for buying gold and this stuff, someone will say, oh my God, look what do we have here? Wheat, we have barley, we have dates, we have salt. Does that mean I cannot buy these except by direct transaction, hand to hand? This is the key. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. So with this, credit cards are very big question marks. To buy this stuff, So you cannot buy except hand by hand. Whereas the credit card itself, it's a credit. So meaning that you are buying and you might not be paying now. You have some time to buy that for. So if I'm going, for example, to buy a piece of gold using my credit card, although the credit card will give me 30 days to pay it, but the bank is going to pay it for that gold, and I'm not going to pay it now. I'm going to pay it maybe later, after 10 days or 20 days. I already took it. It needs to be hand by hand. This is what the hadith says. Hand takes the money, the gold, hand gives the money. With the credit card, it did not happen. That's why we cannot use the credit cards to buy gold or silver. And do you want to extend it to these? Based on the hadith, yes, it extends to these, all of these items. So it is very tricky. Of course, there are some Islamic banks that have credit cards, but they have a different way of dealing with the credit cards. They ask the person to put money sufficient for the amount he is buying. And these types of credit cards is like a debit card. But they are called credit cards because some transactions or some payments require that type of cards. So the Islamic banking around the world, they put that money on top of or next to that card. And so it becomes like a debit card, although it's a credit card, just to facilitate the transaction. With that type of credit card in the Islamic bank, it is permissible to buy gold with that type of credit card because it's already there, and the bank will just take the money straight away and pay it to that person. So it's on the spot, hand by hand. But in the commercial banks, it's not. Some will say if you have in your account that's the amount of money in the commercial bank, you can, although the majority of the scholars said no, you can't, even if you have that amount in your bank. So, better. And previously, I remember when we used to have the debit cards, we used to struggle with them. But nowadays, the debit cards can be used everywhere. So you don't need to worry about it. It's just a debit card and it's from your own money, and if you don't have money in your account, it's not going to go through. So this is how we need to use for especially these items. Yes?
Is car trading then is allowed or not?
Car trading?
So I have one car, I go to the dealer, so I give my car and some money and then I try to get another car, which is...
That's not included in the hadith. So it's permissible, it has no problems. Because it's not included. These are the items that we cannot. These are specific items.
So it's not like for like doesn't cover that?
No, like for like is only for these.
Okay.
Other items you can. Okay? So you can replace a carpet by a carpet, or a car by a car. But this car is definitely different than this car.
So what about, for example, if I have a farm and I'm importing wheat, okay, and the person that I'm importing the wheat from gives me an invoice, and it says pay it by this date.
It's supposed to be hand by hand.
So that means in that case it's not allowed.
It's not allowed to. These are the items that we should not purchase except hand by hand.
Okay, so with the wheat, is it like a bag of wheat? What about if it's wheat bix or something?
No, it's the actual wheat.
Just a bag of wheat.
Yeah, the actual wheat. So we need to be careful about that. Okay? Why are these being mentioned? Especially. And anything extra is riba, interest. What categories can we put this under? And this is how the scholars actually thought. Why did the Prophet ﷺ mention especially these? Why not the rice? Because if you look at it, these are the most expensive, valuable, and these are the food of the people. Some scholars argued, but hold on, the rice now is the food of the people, is the key. So that's how some of the scholars actually included the rice in these categories based on how the Prophet ﷺ chose, how did he choose all of these things. So based on they are the basic food of the people, then the basic food of the people now is rice, and so some of the scholars included rice in the riba. And so you cannot deal with rice except hand by hand. And except if you are replacing rice by rice, it needs to be the same amount. Alright, so this is buying gold using bank cards, and obviously you cannot buy gold by installments because it needs to be hand by hand.
So just to clarify, if you want to go to the shop and buy a ring or earrings for your wife or whatever, it has to be debit card.
It has to be debit card, and it has to be or cash. So the money goes from your account on the spot.
And if you have gold left over at home and you take it to like cash converters and you get money from it, no problem.
No problem.
It's not gold for gold.
Yes.